Please be seated. Proceedings has resumed.
Presentation of papers and of reports. The Government Minute, Segregated Insurance Fund, 2015-2016 accounts, and Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, 2015-2016 accounts, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Deputy Governor.
The Honorable Deputy Governor.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the government's response to the reports on the Standing Accounts Committee for the Segregated Insurance Fund accounts and Cayman Islands Monetary Authority 2015-16 accounts.
So ordered.
Mr. Speaker, the government minutes provides management responses to the recommendations contained in the report of the Public Accounts Committee. This includes responses to an additional recommendation from the PAC itself. Where relevant, they also provide further updates to the management responses previously provided on the recommendations from the Office of the Auditor General. It should be noted, Mr. Speaker, that this particular government minute was one of those that was flagged by the Auditor General as past due outstanding for some time. So I am happy that we were able to have it laid on the table of this House at this meeting. Mr. Speaker, in reference to the government minute on the Segregated Insurance Fund 2015-2016 accounts and the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, SEMA 2015-2016 accounts, the Public Accounts Committee, PAC, made 4 recommendations. The PAC recommended that government consider allowing the Health Insurance Commission to regulate the premiums for all health insurance plans, not just the standard health insurance contract, which we know as SHIC, and ensure that they are adequately resourced to carry out these additional duties. This is in the interest of keeping private health premiums as low as possible, especially given the SHIC only accounts for 20% of health insurance plans. Changing the law to ensure that private sector employers often offer post-retirement health care benefits to lessen the cost impact on government finances. That was number 2. And number 3, increase the $10 individual and $20 family fee that is levied on private health insurance plans to better help fund the cost of indigent health care. And 4, doing whatever is necessary to give SEMA, as property insurance regulator, the ability to influence the property insurance market premiums increasing in the Cayman Islands. In response to the recommendations 1 through 3, the Minister of Health and Wellness indicated that these will be addressed with the Health Insurance Commission this year. By way of update, Mr. Speaker, I note that since the preparation of the management response to this report, the Ministry has indicated that a review of the Health Insurance Act and Regulation has commenced, and these recommendations will be further considered within that process. Mr. Speaker, with regards to recommendation 4, in the management response, the Ministry of Financial Services and Commerce has indicated that currently SEMA does not have statutory power to regulate property premiums rates in the Cayman Islands, but in performing its regulatory function, is expected to use its best endeavors to promote and enhance market confidence and consumer protection. Some of the steps SEMA has taken to achieve this includes put in place a rule on market conduct, insurance agents and brokers in line with the international standards, focusing on fair treatment of customers' obligations for information provided by insurance companies and intermediaries to their insurance consumers, mandatory disclosure requirements around the compensation structure and remuneration arrangements between intermediaries and insurers, etc. Mandatory annual and quarterly reporting requirements to ensure insurance companies remain financially stable as a stable business environment is important for the insurance sector and consumer confidence. Off-site and on-site inspections to audit insurance companies and intermediaries' conduct and treatment of customers, prompt investigation of customer complaints against insurance companies and intermediaries, trying to balance the need for consumers to receive an appropriate level of protection and the benefits of competition by not imposing unreasonable barriers to entry for new insurance and intermediaries businesses. Mr. Speaker, while the Office of the Auditor General is the office with responsibility for reporting on the implementation of these recommendations, I believe it's important that I provide a brief synopsis on the progress being made by the Civil Service. The Civil Service values these opportunities to reflect and improve and will continue to work towards the successful implementation of the recommendations in a timely manner. I would like, Mr. Speaker, to thank I would like to take this opportunity to thank the OAG, the PAC, and chief officers and their teams for their effort in this regard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The government minute follow-up on past PAC recommendations, October 2018, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Deputy Governor.
The Honorable Deputy Governor.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. In accordance with Section 777 of the Parliament's standing orders, I'm hereby tabling the government minute on the following report of the Standing Public Accounts Committee and the Office of the Auditor General. The government minute follow-up on PAC recommendations, October 2018.
So ordered. Member want to speak to it?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Again, just briefly. Mr. Speaker, the government minute provides responses to the recommendations contained in the report of the Public Accounts Committee. This includes responses to any additional recommendations from the PAC itself. Where relevant, they also provide further updates to the management responses previously provided on the recommendations from the Office of the Auditor General. It should be noted, Mr. Speaker, that this particular government minute was again one of those that was flagged by the Auditor General as past due outstanding for some time. Mr. Speaker, in reference to the government minute on the follow-up on past PAC recommendations, October 2018, the Public Accounts Committee made 4 additional recommendations in relation to social assistance programs and 3 additional recommendations in relation to ensuring quality health care and a healthy population. Mr. Speaker, as we are all aware, both our healthcare systems and our social assistance programs were put to the test during the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to publicly thank once again all those in the civil service, public service, our elected leaders, and private sector for their preparation and responses during the COVID-19 pandemic, which helped to ensure the safety of our people. Mr. Speaker, one of the additional recommendations dealt with in this government minute was a recommendation to the former Ministry of Health, Environment, Housing and Culture, HEC, to develop a housing strategy for the country. In the management response to the Ministry of Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure, which currently has responsibility for this area of work, has indicated that they are preparing a draft strategy which will include housing proposals for low-income families. The Chief Officer has indicated that this draft report is due to be submitted to the government by the end of 2023. It was also recommended that the former Ministry of HEC review its methods for approving medical indigent and established a post to ensure easier access. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to note that from the management response, the collaboration between the current Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Health Services Authority, HSA, has been ongoing. In the management response, the Chief Officer indicates that an initial meeting has been held in March of this year to review the approval methods for indigents. The Chief Officer also noted that the HSA patient services and the medical social worker at HSA currently provide assistance to help persons navigate the application process. Mr. Speaker, there's a recommendation to replace the poor relief law. In the management response, the Minister of Investment, Innovation, and Social Development noted that the recommendation for legislation was on the way. The draft legislation has been titled Financial Assistance Bill, and by way of an update, I'm pleased to note that the Minister has indicated that the bill was gazetted on the 12th of August 2022, and the Financial Assistance Bill is on the order paper for consideration during this current meeting of Parliament. This is a huge win for all of us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, recommendation 4 of the report calls on the former Ministry of Community Affairs to conduct a review of the staffing levels of the Needs Assessment Unit to determine that adequate resources are provided to deal with the workload. In the management response, the current Minister of Investment, Innovation, and Social Development has indicated that they are undergoing an organizational review, which includes an analysis of the human resources capacity, organizational structure, and job descriptions as part of the social development strategy that is being drafted. Mr. Speaker, there were 3 recommendations relating to ensuring quality health care and a healthy population from the former Minister of Health, Environment, Housing, and Culture. The first recommendation was for the Ministry to consider Canada as an option for Caymanian doctors to obtain specialty board certification. In the management response, the Chief Officer in the current Ministry of Health and Wellness has indicated that they have developed a draft policy on the development of Caymanian doctors, which considered Canada as an option as per the recommendation. The policy will need to be presented to caucus. Mr. Speaker, it was also noted in the management response that the ministry currently supports Caymanian doctors by funding $150,000 to the HSA each year for medical internships. In response to a recommendation to consider ways to reduce cost of health care, the Chief Officer indicates in her management response that the Ministry of Health and Wellness is currently reviewing the cost of health care, which includes a review of the duty and markup on drugs. Mr. Speaker, the last recommendation in this report was to publish the findings of the review of the health insurance providers that was conducted by the Health Insurance Commission. I'm pleased to note, Mr. Speaker, that the management response indicates that the Department of Health Regulatory Service has published this information on its website. Mr. Speaker, while the Office of the Auditor General is the office with responsibility for the reporting on the implementation of these recommendations, I again believe it is important that I provide a brief synopsis on the progress being made by the civil service. The civil service values these opportunities to reflect and improve and will continue to work towards the successful implementation of these recommendations in a timely manner. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Office of the Auditor General, the Public Accounts Committee, Chief Officers, and their teams for their efforts in this regard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Government Minute. Reports of the Office of the Auditor General on Owen Roberts International Airport Terminal Redevelopment Project progress updated as of August 2018. Financial reporting of the Cayman Islands Government General Report 2019 and improving financial accountability and transparency, budget in December 2020, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Deputy Governor.
Honourable Deputy Governor.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Section 777 of the Parliament Standing Orders, I'm hereby tabling the Government Minute on the following report of the Standing Public Accounts Committee and the Office of the Auditor General. The Government Minute report of the Office of the Auditor General on Owen Roberts International Airport Terminal Redevelopment Project, progress update as of August 2018, financial reporting of the Cayman Islands Government General Report 2019, and improving financial accountability and transparency budgeting, December 2020.
So ordered. Member wishes to speak.
Mr. Speaker, again, just briefly. Mr. Speaker, government minutes provide management responses to the recommendations contained in the report of the Public Accounts Committee. This includes responses to any additional recommendations from the PAC itself. Where relevant, they also provide updates to the management responses previously provided on the recommendations from the Office of the Auditor General. Before providing some brief remarks on this government minute, Mr. Speaker, please allow me to advise this Honorable House that in January 2022, I personally took responsibility at the Public Accounts Committee meeting for coordinating the tabling of the government minutes with a view to addressing a backlog of past due government minutes and improving the timeliness with government minutes are tabled. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to advise that my office has made good progress in preparing the minutes for Cabinet approval and submitting them to Parliament for tabling. And we're almost caught up on this backlog. However, it should be noted that the actual tabling of the minutes are subject to the meeting scheduled of this Honorable House. It should be noted, Mr. Speaker, that this particular government minute was one of those that was flagged by the Auditor General as past due outstanding for some time. Mr. Speaker, this particular minute incorporates 3 separate reports, and the following should be noted. No additional recommendations were made as part of the PAC report on the OAG report entitled Owen Roberts International Airport Terminal Redevelopment Project. Therefore, no government updates were provided as part of this minute. 2 recommendations were made for financial reporting of the Cayman government, and 17 recommendations were made for improving financial accountability and transparency. Mr. Speaker, in the management response from the Financial Secretary and Accountant General on their report entitled Financial Reporting of the Cayman Islands Government, General Report 2019, December 2020, I'm pleased to note that the 2 recommendations focus on the timely laying of annual reports and stronger functional leadership to the Minister of Finance have been actioned. I personally have reiterated the importance of the timeliness of these reports to chief officers, and I thank them and their teams, including their CFOs, for their efforts in this regard. The Minister of Finance has been diligent in reminding agencies of their responsibilities and the relevant timelines. And Mr. Speaker, if you note on the order paper today, you will see a number of reports that are being tabled in accordance with this recommendation. Mr. Speaker, I also note that in a response to a recommendation from the report entitled Improving Financial Accountability and Transparency, Budgeting December 2020, the Minister of Finance and Economic Development has revised the delivery of a modern budget framework to be delivered on the 28th of February 2025. In management response, the team has indicated that progress to date includes the Steering Committee for Modernizing the Government Budget and Reporting Framework, formerly Performance Budgeting and Reporting Working Group, has had several meetings so far this year. Coming out of these meetings, an RFP for the outline business case has been prepared and was issued on the 31st of May 2022. The Steering Committee plans to include all recommendations made in the OAG reports. By way of update, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to note that since the preparation of the management response to this report, Phase 1 for the modernization of government's budgeting and reporting framework has now started. EY Cayman has been selected after a competitive bidding process to assist with the development of a business case. With the change to outcome budgeting and reporting, the Minister of Finance envisages that the budget documents will be substantially more condensed than their current form has been recommended. And Mr. Speaker, I can say that I attended a meeting just on Wednesday of this week with my senior leadership team, with the Minister of Finance and EY to take this project forward. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the Financial Secretary, the Accountant General, and their teams for their work to progress these recommendations. Mr. Speaker, the report entitled Improving Financial Accountability and Transparency, Budgeting, December 2020, also included a recommendation for the portfolio of the Civil Service, POCUS, to develop a pay strategy that sets out if and when pay rewards will be given and, where appropriate, to factor this information into budget estimates. Mr. Speaker, from the management response, I note that POCS has formulated pay proposals for 2022 and 2023, which are informed by economic forecasts and are compliant with the CIG's existing 2022-2023 approved global HR budget for the core civil service. These pay proposals address consolidated basic pay increases, example, the cost of living adjustments and pay progression, and variable pay such as one-off honorariums. The work to produce a 2-year pay proposal will be replicated in 2023 in order to recommend pay proposals as part of the 2024 and 2025 budget process. Additionally, the POCS management response indicated that, as recommended, the portfolio plans to introduce total reward statements for each staff member that provides greater transparency of the total value of working within the civil service, including the monetary value of passive benefits such as health insurance. We believe that's going to be a great value to our teams. Mr. Speaker, in this report, there was also 2 recommendations assigned to me as Deputy Governor, and those were to discuss with the Parliament the introduction of a formal timetable of regular scheduled meetings that include dedicated time for scrutiny of original budgets and changes to these as well. Arrangements for ensuring that the supplementary appropriation bill is introduced to the Parliament in a timely manner and at the latest within 3 months after the financial year end as required by legislation. Mr. Speaker, by way of action, you will recall that I forward these recommendations to the Honourable Premier and to you, the Honourable Speaker of this House, for your attention and consideration that these matters fall outside of the remit fall under the remit of the independent Parliament and not the Executive. Mr. Speaker, in closing, while the Office of the Auditor General is the office with responsibility for the reporting on the implementation of these recommendations, I believe it is important that I provide a brief synopsis of the progress being made by the civil service. The civil service values these opportunities to reflect and improve and will continue to work towards the successful implementation of these recommendations in a timely manner. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Office of the Auditor General, the Public Accounts Committee, chief officers, and their teams for their efforts in this regard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ministry of Tourism and Transport, annual report for the year ended 31st of December 2021, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Tourism and Transport.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In accordance with Section 44.5 of the Public Management and Finance Act 2020 revision, it gives me great pleasure to place before this Honourable House the annual report and audited financial statements of the Ministry of Tourism and Transport for the fiscal year ended 31st of December 2021.
So ordered. Is the Minister wishing to speak?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, just for a short moment. Mr. Speaker, the audited financial statements show that the total income for the year ended the 31st of December 2021 was $28,995,000, while total expenditures were $26,980,000. This resulted in a surplus of $2,015,000. The ministry had current assets of $22,880,000 and a non-concurrent assets of $325,000. The total assets amounted to $23,155,000 as of the 31st of December 2021. Current liabilities of $20,910,000 reflect the total liabilities for the ministry. The total net worth was $2,245,000, which consists only of the contributed capital. There were no reevaluation reserves or accumulated surpluses for this financial year. Mr. Speaker, This was an unqualified audit opinion by the Auditor General, signed off on the 29th of April, 2022. The Auditor General stated, and I quote, "In my opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the ministry as of December the 31st, 2021, and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year ended the 31st of December 2021 in accordance with the International Public Sector Accounting Standards," end quote. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry is pleased to have received another unqualified opinion and is proud of the continued hard work undertaken by my Ministry's team, led by the Chief Officer and the Chief Financial Officer, to receive this opinion. So I take this opportunity to thank my Ministry staff and the Office of the Auditor General for the work that has gone into producing this audited financial statements for the Ministry of Tourism and Transport for the fiscal year ended 31st of December 2021. I now invite all members of this Honourable House and the public to review the report in detail. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
(2021) Annual Report, Portfolio of Legal Affairs, Cayman Islands Government, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Attorney General.
The Honourable Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I seek leave of this House to lay on the table the annual report for the Portfolio of Legal Affairs for the financial year ending December 2021.
Say AG speaking.
Mr. Speaker, only to, with your leave, say thanks to the staff of the Portfolio of Legal Affairs, in particular the Solicitor General and staff on that department, our unit, the head of the legislative drafting and staff there, the Director of the Financial Reporting Authority and staff, the Director of the Law School and the staff, head of the Law Revision Commission and the staff, the head of the Law Reform Commission and staff, as well as the head of the Anti-Money Laundering Unit and staff, for their continued hard work, their dedication, and their professionalism throughout the year, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Water Authority Cayman 2021 Annual Report, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of District Administration and Lands.
The Honourable Minister of Education, District Administration and Lands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the annual report for the Water Authority Cayman 2021.
Ordered. Is the Minister wishing to speak?
No, Mr. Speaker, the report is self-explanatory, and just to add my sincere thanks to the excellent leadership of the Water Authority and the great work that they do.
Ministry of Education, Cayman Islands Government 2021 Annual Report, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Education.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you once again, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the 2021 Annual Report for the Ministry of Education.
So ordered. Is the Minister going to speak to it?
No, Mr. Speaker. When the opportunity next arises, I'll be making a detailed statement of all the wonderful things that have been transpiring in the Ministry of Education.
Annual Report 2021, Investing in Our People for a Brighter Future. Ministry of Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure.
The Honourable Minister of Planning.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the annual report for investing in our people for a brighter future, the Ministry of Planning, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure.
So ordered. Is the Minister speaking?
Mr. Speaker, no, the report is self-explanatory.
Cayman Islands Monetary Authority Annual Report 2021 to be laid on the table by the Honorable Minister of Financial Services and Commerce.
The Honorable the Minister of Financial Services, Commerce.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority Annual Report 2021.
So ordered. Is the Minister speaking?
Only briefly, Mr. Speaker, to thank the board, the Managing Director, Ms. Cindy Scotland, and her excellent staff for their hard work for that financial year.
Cayman Islands Stock Exchange report for the fiscal year ended 31st of December 2021 to be laid on the table by the Honorable Minister of Financial Services and Commerce.
The Honorable Minister of Financial Services and Commerce, Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the Cayman Islands Stock Exchange report for the fiscal year ending 31 December 2021.
So ordered. Is the Minister speaking?
Only, Mr. Speaker, to again thank the board, the CEO of the Stock Exchange, Mr. Marco Archer, and his wonderful staff for their work for that fiscal year.
Civil Aviation Authority of the Cayman Islands Annual Report, fiscal year ended 31st of December 2021, Excellence and Innovation in Aviation Regulation, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Minister of Financial Services and Commerce.
The Honorable the Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the Civil Aviation Authority of the Cayman Islands Annual Report for the fiscal year ended 31 December 2021.
So ordered. Is the Minister speaking?
Again, very briefly, Mr. Speaker, to thank the board of the Civil Aviation Authority, the Director General, Mr. Richard Smith, and the wonderful staff and the work that they have done over the course of that fiscal year.
Cayman Maritime Annual Report, January to December 2021, Maritime Authority of the Cayman Islands, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Minister of Financial Services and Commerce.
The Honorable the Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the Cayman Islands Maritime Authority Annual Report from January to December 2021.
So ordered. Is the Minister speaking?
Again, Mr. Speaker, just very... You're welcome, Deputy Premier. Only briefly, sir, Mr. Speaker, to thank again the board and the staff led by Joelle Walton. In this case, I want to make a special mention for the outgoing chair, Ms. Charisse Armand, who served on the board ably for 6 years and took the board and the authority from strength to strength with her intelligence, her knowledge of maritime law. And I just want to thank her and wish the incoming chair, Mr. Ian White, all the very best.
Cayman Islands Government, Cayman Islands 2021 Census of Population and Housing Report, July 2022, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Development.
The Honorable the Minister of Finance, Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the Cayman Islands 2021 Census of Population and Housing Report, July 2022.
Order. Is the Minister speaking?
Very briefly, Mr. Speaker, just to thank the staff of the Economic and Statistics Office, the hundreds of volunteers that also undertook the census, and the thousands of residents who welcomed the census workers in their homes at the time when we were still dealing with the COVID pandemic. One of the things I also want to highlight, Mr. Speaker, is that while we had a separate press conference and we have since put this information in the public domain, we want to just let the public know that the government is actively looking at a lot of different initiatives as a result of the census. One of the things that we are looking at, working close with the Ministry of Health, is even updates to the standard health insurance plan, because when you do look at the kind of disabilities that our Caymanian people and people who call the Cayman Islands homes facing, you realize that we definitely need to make some changes when we look at the overall healthcare plan. It is also a good tool for us in terms of finalizing the terms of reference for the minimum wage committee, so much so that we're looking to appoint a committee this month to start the work. So there's a lot of valuable information inside of it, and it's a good policy tool that the government can use for a lot of data information. So I want to thank everyone.
Cayman Islands Government, the Cayman Islands Annual Economic Report 2021, August 22, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Development.
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the Cayman Islands Annual Economic Report 2021.
So ordered. Is the Minister going to speak?
Very briefly, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to say that I just want to thank the Minister of Finance and the team at the Economic Statistics Office. This a separate press release has already been done for this. It's already been in the public domain for quite some time, and I'll encourage everyone to take a look at it.
Cayman Islands Government, Cayman Islands First Quarter Economic Report 2022, August 2022, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Development.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to lay on the table of this Honorable House the Cayman Islands First Quarter Economic Report 2022.
So ordered. Is the Minister speaking?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but still briefly. Mr. Speaker, the First Quarter Economic Report 2022 presents a snapshot of the state of the domestic economy based on data for the first 3 months of the year 2022 as collected by the Economics and Statistics Office. The report also highlights key macroeconomic fundamentals of advanced economies. Mr. Speaker, the First Quarter Economic Report 2022 contains an overview sheet which provides easy reference of the key economic developments during the quarter. In my brief introduction today, Mr. Speaker, I aim to present a summary of the global economic developments in advanced economies for the first quarter of 2022 compared to the same period in 2021. I will then proceed to summarize our domestic performance in the first quarter. Mr. Speaker, the Cayman Islands economic outturn in the first quarter of 2022 was recorded against the backdrop of rising economic activities in most advanced economies, except the United States, which contracted in the quarter. The relatively slow pace of growth in the period largely reflected rising production costs amidst relatively robust demand. Canada's economy grew by an annualized rate of 0.8%, while the United Kingdom and the Euro area recorded growth of 0.8% and 0.5%, respectively. In contrast, the U.S. economy contracted at an annualized rate of 1.6%. Mr. Speaker, average inflation in the U.S. and the Euro area averaged 8% and 6.1%, respectively, while the UK and Canada both recorded average inflation of 5.8% for the quarter. Rising consumer prices were due to a general increase in the cost of all international commodity groups and largely reflected heightened uncertainty as Russia invaded Ukraine amidst existing supply chain constraints. Of note, Mr. Speaker, Russia is one of the world's largest suppliers of crude oil, while Ukraine is a key supplier of grains and precious metals. According to the World Bank, Mr. Speaker, according to the World Bank commodity price data sheet, Mr. Speaker, energy and food prices rose by 80% and 24.7% respectively during the quarter. Turning to our domestic economy, Mr. Speaker, our country's economic output expanded in the first quarter of the year, mainly due to a recovery in the tourism and transportation sectors. The country's annualized gross domestic product at constant prices expanded at an estimated rate of 3.8% for the first quarter of 2022, relative to a growth of 0.4% in the first quarter of 2021. The hotels and restaurant sector had an estimated growth of 27.8%, while transport and communication expanded by an estimated 14.3%. The other services sector also showed notable expansion of 9.1%, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll present highlights of the economic performance in the major sectors, followed by developments in the fiscal accounts for the quarter. Total money supply consistent of currency in circulation and bank deposits grew by 2% to reach CI $8.6 billion in the quarter, relative to the same period of 2021. The expansion was due to respective increases of 2.9% and 1.7% in CI dollar-denominated money and foreign currency holdings by residents, respectively. As the money supply in the financial system increased, domestic credit extended by local commercial banks rose by 8.5% to $3.8 billion, with credit to the private sector increasing by 10.1%. Notably, Mr. Speaker, the central government reduced its position in the credit market with loans to the public sector by declining by 15.2% for the quarter, relative to the same period in 2021. The financial services indicator showed mixed results for the quarter, with three increasing and three declining. Stock exchange listing increased by 13.5%, while mutual funds and insurance licenses rose by 4.6% and 0.1% respectively. Bank and trust license fell by 17.4%, while new company and new partnership registration declined by 14.5% and 1.3% respectively. Mr. Speaker, the tourism sector began its recovery in the first quarter of the year with 41,007 stayover visitors relative to the 2,085 in the first quarter of 2021. Additionally, with the reopening of the island's cruise port, which was closed throughout 2021, the Cayman Islands received 16,879 cruise visitors in the quarter. In construction, the non-reoccurrence of two large hotel projects led to a 59.4% reduction in building permits, while project approval rose by 39.3% on account of a strong increase in residential project approvals. Activities in the real estate sector continue to rise, with the value of traded properties in the quarter rising 37.7% relative to the same period in 2021. In the utility sector, electricity demand rose by 3.9%, while water demand increased by 5.2%. At the end of March 2022, the number of employees in the civil service increased by 1.3% to 4,433, while the number of work permits issued rose by 17.8% to 29,294. Finally, Mr. Speaker, in the first quarter of 2022, the central government total revenue grew by 10.6% to reach $446.9 million relative to the same period of 2021. This reflected increases in both revenue from trade on international transactions and domestic goods and services. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, operating expenses rose by 8.6% to $219.7 million, while net investment in non-financial assets fell by 41.9% to $3.8 million. Thus, the overall fiscal deficit, which is total revenue less total expenditure in the quarter, reached $215.9 million compared to a surplus of $188.5 million in the same period of 2021. Mr. Speaker, the first quarter economic report 2022 has been circulated to the general public through the website of the Economics and Statistics Office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cayman Islands Government, Unaudited Quarterly Financial Report, 6-month period ended 30th of June 2022, core government, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Development.
Minister of Finance and Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the unaudited quarterly financial report for the 6-month period ended 30th of June 2022.
So ordered. Is the minister speaking there too?
Just briefly remarks, Mr. Speaker, only to first of all thank the staff in the Ministry of Finance for the fine work that they have continued to do, led by the very able Kenneth Jefferson. But I also want to thank my colleagues in Cabinet, my entire Park Caucus, the Governor, the Deputy Governor, and everyone in terms of where we are financially. Because, Mr. Speaker, while we're still at this point ahead of budget in terms of revenues, we are also ahead of budget in terms of expenditure. And the overall impact or the negative impact of being over in some areas has been negated by a lot of hard work in civil servants and public servants who have, in essence, kept personal costs down low, below budget, and also have kept supplies and consumables below budget. I think around the end of June, they're about 30 million or thereabouts below budget. And that kind of really helped us in terms of helping our people in other areas. Because as you may recall, we continued the stipend payment past the first quarter, then budgeted due to the Omicron variant at the time. And as such, we didn't budget for that originally because we thought we'd have reopened the economy in the first quarter. So we basically ended up paying almost 20 million more in stipend payments than we budgeted for. But that was actually offset by savings that we had in personnel costs and also supplies and consumables. Equally, Mr. Speaker, we have actually spent more money in terms of care that's not provided to HSA, normally referred to as NGS 55. And again, while those were actually over budget, we were able to, the impact was actually negated by savings again in personnel costs and also in supplies and consumables. So while the two areas that we are over budget on, and I want to make it for the record that even though those areas are overspent, we did have the legal approval to do so, whether by Finance Committee, by Section 12, or by 11.5 in Cabinet. But I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the overspent is a result of us spending money on our people in areas where it's well needed. And this is what this government is about, being able to take care of our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Health Services Authority, Cayman Islands, Annual Report 2021, Staying Resilient and Forging Ahead, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness.
The Honorable the Minister of Health and Wellness.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay before this Honourable House the annual report and audited financial statements of the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority for the 12-month ended 31st of December 2021.
So ordered. Is the minister going to speak?
Yes, please. I seek your indulgence. Mr. Speaker, the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority, as we know, is a statutory body that has been established as an authority on the 1st of July 2002 under the Health Services Authority's law. And the purpose of this authority is to provide healthcare services and facilities in the Cayman Islands in accordance with the National Health Policy and Strategic Plan that is prepared by the Cayman Islands government, which, Mr. Speaker, is one of the top priorities my ministry will undertake during this term to revise. As you know, Mr. Speaker, the achievements of these 2021 results were under the stewardship of the current PACT government, and the magnitude of our efforts and those of several individuals during what was an unprecedented period demonstrates that what can be achieved with dedicated collaboration and careful planning in conjunction with a very strong execution. Mr. Speaker, due to the pandemic, the authority was forced to acclimate to new routines and procedures. Although many sectors, Mr. Speaker, were put on hold, or some even came to a dramatic stop, the health sector was inundated and had to double up their efforts to respond to the great demand. And if anything, COVID-19 definitely highlighted the strengths, gaps, and also resilience of our communities and our healthcare system. Now, accordingly, Mr. Speaker, HSA provides primary and secondary care throughout their 127-bed Cayman Islands Hospital. We have 18 beds at Faith Hospital on Cayman Brac, and a host of community-based services facilities, such as the Smith Road Center. We have some at the Baytown Plaza, Georgetown Facility Center, Georgetown General Practice Clinic, the West Bay Health Center, Boddentown Health Center, East End Health Center, Northside Health Center, Public Health Department, Lions Eye Clinic, Georgetown Dental Clinic, Marin's Dental Clinic, Cayman Brac Dental Clinic, and Little Cayman Clinic. It's amazing how we have grown. Before reviewing the audited financial statements, Mr. Speaker, I will outline the highlight the 2021 audited report. There are 5 strategic priorities which guides the authority's mission to provide the highest quality of health care and improve the well-being of our people here in the Cayman Islands through accessible, sustainable, patient-focused services. It is my vision, Mr. Speaker, that when you go to the Health Services Authority, it's almost like an all-inclusive resort. That's exactly what I expect and how our patients and persons seeking those services should be treated. And that's why I refer to them as the ladies and gentlemen of the Health Services Authority. Now, strategic priority 1 is improve patient and staff experience. In 2021, there was an expansion of infrastructure with the addition of 3 new locations. Now, these included the Smith Road Center, Baytown Plaza and Georgetown Financial Center. As results, patients were exposed to a broad range of outpatients and diagnostic services in one building, which eliminated the needs for patients to move to multiple location points. Mr. Speaker, the Smith Road Center has many new features, including the redesigned waiting and clinical rooms, a new staff lounge, improved clinical workspace like the nursing station, and an advanced environment of care to meet Joint Commission international standards. Furthermore, the introduction of well-needed transport shuttle for patients and staff, as well as the non-emergent patient transport service to support patients requiring wheelchair and stretcher assistance. The authority, Mr. Speaker, has made other advancements, like the new ergonomic wheelchairs for the Accident and Emergency Department, along with the expansion of the information desk within that department. Now, subsequently, a survey was conducted which involved 21,439 patients, and the results indicated that 83.5% gave the quality of care and service a positive rating. Far too often we hear the negative, but the results prove that the staff and services being provided based on this ranking was an excellent score of 9 out of 10. Strategic priority number 2 is expand HSA clinical capabilities and optimize core services. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, a phased acquisition of the Smith Road Center began and it ended the end of 2021. HSA now owns 80% of the 45,000 square feet complex. Now, this investment doubled the serving capacity of patients. It also created more space for the implementation for new services, such as a complementary alternative medicine, sports medicine, chiropractic, and microbiology services. Mr. Speaker, existing services had significantly expanded with the addition of 39 clinical rooms, 4 rooms in the specialist clinic, and 7 rooms in cardiology. In fact, there was an increase of 10 rooms in the general practice and primary healthcare departments. Strategic priority 3 is talent attraction and retention, which is key. The HSA continues to be one of the largest single employers in the Cayman Islands with over 1,000 employees. That's 57% of whom are Caymanians, and I am proud to deliver those results. The work to implement the new HR information system commenced back in 2021. Now, when the system launches, it will provide complete electronic solutions for human resources management for onboarding and also for retirement. Mr. Speaker, I'm so pleased also to report that the annual summer internship program for 2021 was relaunched due to a 1-year hiatus caused by COVID-19. It provided approximately 80 high school and college students the opportunity to get hands-on experience in a variety of departments within the medical field. Furthermore, all senior and section managers completed a Just Culture training course to alter the work environment by applying accountability. Likewise, 589 employees were recognized with long service awards for work anniversaries of 5 years to 45 plus years, spanning back as far as 2017 to 2021. And Mr. Speaker, a park and ride pilot program was also launched to provide staff a peaceful commute to and from work to help reduce fuel, vehicle maintenance, and carbon emission. It's all about sustainability. Strategic priority 4 is to develop and expand current infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, last year the capital budget of $8 million was appropriated to fund approximately 35 critical infrastructure projects of varying scopes and complexities. Now, the largest single investment since the inception of the authority in 2002. Here we go. PACs got their back. Mr. Speaker, 4 out of 35 approved projects will collectively result in annual cost savings to the Health Services Authority of approximately $500,000 with the recovery of investments in less than 10 years. Now, if that's not smart, I don't know what is. Some of the investments conducted were the expansion of the mental health inpatient unit by adding 3 rooms and increasing the total number to 11. The acquisition of the first floor of the Smith Road Center for expansion of radiology, blood bank, and microbiology departments. Also, upgraded camera and alarm systems across the campus and converted several spaces into negative pressure environments for COVID-19 positive patients. Strategic priority 5, Mr. Speaker, is leverage technology to improve access and to the delivery of care. Now, IT supported and implemented multiple off-site departments, relocation and service expansions, including Faith Hospital with over 200 PCs and 350 monitors. Far too often, our sister islands feel that they're forgotten, but I'm telling you, works and improvements are in tow with making sure that we're all on equal footing over in the sister islands. Mr. Speaker, further implementation of the new anti-spam software for emails, disaster recovery backup system, firewalls, UPS system upgrades, and over 129,000 in additional storage to increase space, speed, and zero downtime. In short, Mr. Speaker, we want the public to know that the HSA plays an indispensable role in our community. What we cannot forget is where we're coming from. The authority has increased its presence in the community by providing education on diabetes, hypertension, health, safety, hand washing techniques, and smoking cessation. The Public Health Department has made great strides during COVID-19 pandemic, and consequently, the 2021 statistics indicated that there were 54,363 general practice visits in Grand Cayman, 4,758 general practice visits in Cayman Brac, and 531 general practice visits in Little Cayman. They received 21,645 calls to the flu hotline as well. Now, despite the challenges brought on by COVID-19, Mr. Speaker, the Health Services Authority secured access to more than 9,750 doses of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine at the beginning of 2021. Now, other achievements includes the establishment of the largest and most successful testing infrastructure in the Caribbean through the rollout of the National Vaccination Program, which resulted in the vaccination of over 58,000 people in the Cayman Islands. That is something to be proud of, and it is the reason why our borders are open safely today. Now, the 6-bed respiratory care unit reactivated and another section of the hospital converted and dedicated to the care of COVID patients. The booster program, third dose, was launched with a new supply of Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines. The Health Services Authority continues to promote the program and aims to increase the booster uptake rates, and I will stress to the public, we're rolling out a big campaign because booster is key for coverage throughout. Now, Mr. Speaker, there are also many enhancements to the facilities in the sister islands, which includes the new proposed built ambulance for Little Cayman. We have infrastructure upgrades to meet JCI requirements, including replacements of aging air conditioners, their water system, as well as enhancing to the medication rooms, relocation of female ward bed and an updated restrooms, installation of 3 negative pressure rooms for the care of COVID-19 patients, and the installation of new chairs for the inpatient unit, emergency room, waiting area, and outpatient waiting area. And I am sure the people of the sister islands are elated at this report. Additionally, significant investments were made in purchasing clinical equipment, including colonoscopy machine, physiotherapy equipment, fridge and freezer, and X-ray imaging system arriving later this year. Now, Mr. Speaker, I now invite honorable members of this House and a member of the public to delve into the HSA report of 2021. The Auditor General's report for the audited financial statement of the 12-month ending the 31st of December 2021 declared that the authority recorded a total revenue of $169,073,757 from the government program patient services fees and other sources. Additionally, the total operating expenses was $161,011,245, and the net income for the year was $8.0625.1 million. Mr. Speaker, the Auditors General final and audit and issued an unqualified opinion on HSA's financial statements for the period ending December 2021. In other words, the financial statements present fairly in all material aspects, Mr. Speaker. Furthermore, the financial position of the authority as of the 31st of December 2021, its financial performance and its cash flow for that year were in accordance with international financial reporting standards. Mr. Speaker, we should expect no less from any of our other statutory authorities. Despite the challenges the authorities face, they should be applauded for achieving another clean audit opinion on its 2021 financial statement. And I'm sure that you'll agree that we look forward to witnessing this upward trend. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I would like to recognize the authority for their achievements in 2021 and publicly thank my HSA board, the management of the HSA Health Services for their hard work and perseverance in producing this report in the high standard required to receive an unqualified opinion. The health system is only as good as the care it provides, and every employee of the HSA plays a role in doing so, and they have my sincere gratitude. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the cooperation of our Caymanian community as we individually and collectively calibrated to the new circumstances. I wholeheartedly concur with our Premier, who often notes that our best days are yet to come, and community makes country. Thank you.
National Trust Cayman Islands Annual Report 2017 to 2018, Annual Report 2018 to 2019, Annual Report 2019 to 2020, Annual Report 2020 to 2021, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Premier, Minister of Sustainability and Climate Resilience.
The Honourable the Minister, the Premier. Yes, and Minister of all those things too.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to seek your permission to lay on the table of this Honourable House the annual report for the period, annual reports for the period 2017 to 2018, 2018-2019, 2019-2020, and 2020 to 2021 for the National Trust of the Cayman Islands.
So ordered. Is the Premier speaking?
Just very briefly, sir, to say that I commend the reading of the reports to the public and, of course, my colleagues. The reports reflect the good work of the National Trust, and I commend them for their efforts in terms of maintaining our natural assets, and particularly the blue iguana recovery program that exists, that they're a significant part of. And of course they contribute very significantly in terms of their land holdings to the protection of lands for the country. Thank you, sir.
National Conservation Council, Cayman Islands Annual Report 2020, National Conservation Council, Cayman Islands Annual Report 2021, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Premier, Minister of Sustainability and Climate Resilience.
Honorable Premier.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. I rise to lay on the table of this Honourable House the annual reports for the National Conservation Council dated 2020 and 2021.
So ordered. Is the Minister?
Just very
Mayor
briefly to thank the members of the Council for the hard work that they put in. The reports, again, I commend to the public and to colleagues to read. They reflect a lot of positive contribution to the protection and the mitigation of threats and risks to our natural environment, which is critically important for us to achieve the right balance. Thank you, sir.
That ends the business on the addendum or the paper. Before I call for adjournment, I have been given notice by the Honorable Minister of Tourism and Transport to make a short statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in this honorable house to pay tribute to a true Caymanian icon. It saddens me today to announce the passing of Miss Janet Lee Clifford, who is known to most members of this honorable house as being one of Cayman's iconic teachers. A woman who have left her fingerprints on the development of this country by her amazing ability to develop Caymanians, hundreds and hundreds of Caymanians, through her teaching times. Mr. Speaker, Ms. Clifford passed away yesterday. And on behalf of all of my colleagues in the park administration, and particularly that of the Honorable Premier, we send our greatest sympathies and empathize with the family as they go through this difficult time. She was truly a leader that is worthy of many awards that sadly she may not be here to be recognized, as I am certain her name shall be in our history books more than it is already. Mr. Speaker, it's also important that I highlight the fact that not only is she my constituent, not only is she an amazing teacher and developer of Cayman's nation, but also the mother of one of our past colleagues, the Honorable Charles Clifford, Member of Cabinet. So on behalf of the park administration, on behalf of the good people of Georgetown Central, upon which she resided, I would pass on the greatest sympathies to her family and loved ones as they go through this difficult time. She will not be forgotten. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The chair can associate with the remarks made. Known Miss Janet Lee for many years and know that she was a dedicated teacher and a dedicated Presbyterian belonging to the United Church. And over the years, I have known her. She's been a very, very pleasant lady. These are the people that have helped to put Cayman straight, and we call it Grand Cayman, and we do have a grand country. but it wasn't just brought up. We had good people that have worked over the years to make us what we are, and teachers have been particularly in that group as they worked for barely anything. So we want to recognize and send our sympathy to the family, and I will direct the clerk to send those on behalf, with inclusive of the remarks made by the Honorable Minister of Tourism, who just made those remarks, saying that she was his constituent. May her soul rest in peace. Honorable Premier, before I do that, there have been several people who have made contributions to our country who has passed away since we last met here. I don't have all names, but many of them have made their contributions, and we want to recognize and sympathize with their families. Indeed, I have one lady, she came, family of Cayman, of course, but lived for years in Cuba and came back to Cayman, and her family is well known in West Bay, and in fact, her husband worked for years when he came back with the Public Works Department. And we recognize that those people, particularly our families from Isle of Pines, came at a time when we didn't have mechanics, we didn't have road engineers, and they came and they played those roles with their expertise and knowledge that they had gained in the Isle of Pines. Her granddaughter has just gained employment with the Parliament, and so we want to send the family of Armando E. Banks, all of the family, that is, our sympathy as well. The Honorable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, today has been an interesting day, but we have certainly accomplished quite a bit. Mr. Speaker, I want to, before moving the motion, I want to acknowledge that it is also Older Persons Month. Older Persons Month. And of course it is what's it called officially? I think it's Breast Cancer Month as well. And I think Breast Cancer Awareness Month, yes. And you will notice that we're all wearing our bands and pins, lapel pins, showing our support in that respect. In terms of older persons, sir, I think we all regard those older members of our society as the nation builders that we should acknowledge and we should honor. And I will have the honor and privilege of attending tomorrow a birthday celebration for one of my colleague, the member from East End, one of his constituents, Mr. Frank Conley. And he will be 95 years old tomorrow, sir. And I'm sure all of my colleagues will join me in wishing him a happy birthday tomorrow. Just to add, he's the father of, I think the Deputy Governor, Honorable Deputy Governor can confirm, but the longest serving civil servant in perhaps the history of Cayman Islands government, Mrs. Ann Kirchman. Well, I think 50 years or more, I think. I can't remember exactly what it is, but he's also the father of Mr. How much? Yeah. He's also the father of Mr. McFarlane Conley, who chairs the National Conservation Council, in respect of whose reports I've just submitted. So, just wanted to wish him a happy birthday from all members of the government as well, sir. We also want to extend a belated happy birthday to Miss Georgette Ebanks, who I think was 95 as well. Another iconic lady from Georgetown. In fact, she was one of the ladies, specifically, I remember, that signed, one of the signatories on the petition to demand the right to vote for women. So, with that, Mr. Speaker, I will move the motion for the adjournment of this Honorable House until 10 a.m. on Monday morning.
Your mention of those elderly persons are well taken and recorded, and we all know both of them, the oldest ones that you mentioned, and that Mr. Frank Connolly is well known in tourism, the role he played in tourism over the years. I remember calls from him, things he said to me as Minister of Tourism over the years, good ideas, and knowledgeable about Cayman, and knowledgeable about our culture and our heritage, and was proud of it. And of course, Miss Georgette was Miss Georgette in her own way, who worked in the government department of post office for years as well. Today leaves me 54 more days to be in this chair. That's probably will be like 54 more years. The question is that this Honorable House to stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Monday morning next. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, the ayes have it. This House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. on Monday next.